My name is Manuel Diaz. I'm from Houston, Texas. Thought I'd throw that in there. Go Astros. I was a electrician's mate, second class, E5. I grew up in Houston. Went to high school there. When I was getting ready to graduate from high school, okay, I thought, well, my parents don't have the money. I wanted to go to college, okay. My parents didn't have the money. There was no colleges come beating on my door wanting to give me a football scholarship. So I thought, I'll go into the service. That I can use my VA benefits, you know. So one Saturday, my mom and dad, they went to go do some shopping at one of the strip centers, malls, and I went with them. And so I was walking around there. My mom and dad are doing their thing, and I'm just walking around. I see the recruiting office. It's Air Force recruiter, Marine Corps, and Navy recruiters. And I thought, the Air Force, because they had basic training in San Antonio. They had a zillion bases, Air Force bases in the Texas area, and I thought, I'll be close to home. So I'll go over there to the Air Force recruiter, sign on the door, out to lunch, be back at a certain time. I said, oh. I said, well, I go next door, there's a Navy Marine Corps recruiter. And so I go in, well, while I'm waiting, let me go see what the Navy's got. So I go in there, talk to the Navy recruiter, and he says, well, before I can guide you in a certain direction, you have to take these tests. So I took the test. He said, oh, okay, you did really good. He said, but let's narrow it down a little bit more, give you another test. So I come back a few days later, take another test. He says, oh, he said, and I'm guessing he was just kidding around. And I said, well, he said, well, according to your test grades, you can do anything you want except relieve the captain. And I said, no. So anyhow, I got into that, and before you know it, I was on my way to boot camp, Navy boot camp, and I never saw the Air Force recruiter or anything like that. So, and that was right out of high school. My dad was a veteran. He was a Navy veteran during World War II. I had an uncle that was a Navy veteran. I had some cousins. I come from a lot of military in my family. But as far as it goes, it stopped at me because my brother didn't get into it. Although one of my nieces got into it, into the Army. One of my younger sisters was trying to get into the Army, but she had some kind of medical condition and something with her back or something like that, and medically she couldn't go, but she wanted to. And the funny thing about it is the career she had chose in the Army, she would have been going to school right where I was going to school almost. You know, we were like across the river from each other. We would have been, you know, but that never happened, you know. I was 18 at the time. Yeah, I just turned 18, as a matter of fact. They called me up and said, hey, we got a flight that's ready to go to Orlando, because that's where I was going to go for boot camp. And they said, all right, do you want to get on this flight? And I said, okay. So I got on, went to boot camp. And just like thousands and thousands and thousands of guys before me and after me, the very first morning you wake up, 4 o'clock in the morning, you get to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning, they wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're thinking, what did I get myself into? You know, but from that day on, it was like, it just fell in. I just fell in with it. And I got into a good boot camp company. I was on a drill team. And I did that, performed with the drill team there. And after that, they sent me to electrician school up at Great Lakes, Illinois, and I did that. And then they said, okay, you finished school, so they sent me to my first ship, and it was the USS Independence, this aircraft carrier out of Norfolk, Virginia. Okay, so I go up there, and a couple of guys I had gone to boot camp with, a couple of guys I had gone to electrician school with, we ended up on that ship together, you know. Not very, just 2 or 3 guys that I knew from boot camp time. you know, I served on it, but I really don't count it as much of a time because I was only there for 3 months, maybe, from March to July of 1974, right out of electrician school. So I mean, I served on it, and it counted as sea time for my service record, but I don't. And then after that, it was nuclear power school in Bainbridge, Maryland. I went up there with the idea that I was going to finish this school, I was going to go on to the next step. But I let a little girl get in my head, and it sort of threw me off the school. So I ended up getting transferred out of the school, and they said, here, fill out this dream sheet where you want to go to now. So I said, well, I just did Time 01 carrier. I don't want to do another one. So I filled in for destroyers, escorts, cruisers, frigates, everything smaller. And I filled, you know, everything, different coasts where I want to go, stationed at, everything like that. The only thing that I got from my dream sheet was I got the East Coast. Everything else, nothing. When I was in transition in Philadelphia, and when the guys come up to me and says, hey, your orders are in. You got to go down to the admin building and get your orders. So I get it and I'm looking at it. I look at the orders and it says my next duty station, Lakehurst, New Jersey, Catapult Electrician School. And I started thinking, hey, wait a minute. They don't have catapults on anything except a carrier. And then right after that, at completion of school, report to the USS Saratoga. I said, oh, no. No, I've already done one carrier. I'm not going to do another one. But then I thought, well, what the heck? You know, it's, like I said, another step. So I go to the school. They send me to the Saratoga. They flew me over because she was over in the Mediterranean on a deployment. So they flew me over to Spain to meet up with her. They didn't have any place for us to stay on base, so we had to get us a hotel room off base, you know. And so, just like boot camp, 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody comes banging on your door, and it says, hey, the Saratoga's on the way in. You need to get your stuff and let's go. Grab all my stuff, got on the bus. They took us to the piers there at Rota, Spain, and sat there and waited. Actually, we got there about 6 o'clock in the morning. We waited all day. It was probably about 8, 9 o'clock at night by the time I finally got on board, you know, because I had to wait for it to come in. But a funny thing about that is when I was sitting there waiting, there was 2 younger sailors there, and they were waiting for the Saratoga. It was their first ship, and so I heard them talking. They said, oh, yeah, she's supposed to be a big ship. Somebody told me she's really big and everything like that. And then the ship's coming over the horizon, you know. One guy says, look, that's it. You know, they're pointing out to the ship. And I look out there, and being that I had already been on a carrier, I could recognize the silhouette off on the horizon of a carrier. And this was not it. It was a tanker, I believe. Tanker or a freighter, Navy tanker or something. It was coming in, and I told him, I said, that's not the Saratoga. Yes, it is. Somebody told me she's really big. That's got to be her. I told him, I said, no, I'm sorry, but that's not it. And they said, well, how do you know? I said, just wait. So the ship comes in, pulls up. Like I said, it was the tanker. I think it was an oil tanker. And they looked over there, and they said, wow, that's really big. I said, but that's not the Saratoga, you know. And so maybe about an hour or so later, you could see it coming. I could see the silhouette, you know, out on the horizon. And I said, you see that out there, that ship out there? And they said, where? I said, out there. Look, it's out on the horizon. Oh, yeah. I said, that's the Saratoga. And one guy said, well, it don't look so big to me. I said, wait till she pulls up to the pier. When it pulls up to the pier, they were amazed at the size of that thing, you know, so. That was my first day, and that was January 25th, 1975. People ask me, how can you remember? I said, it's like it was yesterday, you know. But certain things you just remember, you know. So anyway, that was my last duty station was the Saratoga. I claim more than Saratoga because I was on there 4.5 years, something like that. But anyway, I did my time, And I'd say I considered it a big learning experience. I learned a lot. You learn a lot about yourself when you are 18 years old and all of a sudden you have to grow up really fast because you are responsible for some really, you know, tough equipment, the job you got to do, you know, you got to do it, and everybody's counting on you to do your part of the job, you know. And living on a carrier, I started out working in the engine rooms, and for like, I would say the first 2 years I was on board, it was like, unless you snuck off somewhere, you never saw daylight because your working area was down below, your sleeping area was down below, your mess to go eat, everything was down below decks, so you never got to see anything unless you came up and took a break and came up to look outside, but everything else was down below, so you never really saw the outside world. But then I moved up to working on the flight deck, and that's all you saw was the outside world. I was basically the flight deck electrician. They had the lights, like if you go to an airport and you look at, especially at nighttime, you see it all lit up. Runways lit up, the taxiways all lit up and everything. It's the same thing on a carrier, except it's only one runway, you know. And they have the same lights and everything like that, same configuration and stuff. And that's what I was responsible for. Me and my working partner. Also, we had the electrical systems on the catapults and the arresting gear. We were responsible for that too. And there was only 3 of us, you know, on that, had to take care of all that stuff. But, you know, most of them were to the Mediterranean. And the first, I remember one year we went, my first time is when I flew over there. And I did the second half of the deployment, you know. And like I said, I'd never been over there. Like I said, never been any further than San Antonio from Houston, you know. And I was over there in Spain, and then Spain, Italy, France. Actually, when I got on board, they had just left Turkey. One of my buddies was telling me, you know, one of the ones I still keep up with, because he made the whole deployment, and they had just left Turkey. But no, we would go to like the big 3: Spain, France, Italy. We went to Yugoslavia, went to Egypt, went to Morocco, but we really didn't get to see too much of that one. But like I said, mostly Spain, France, Italy, you know, because those are the bigger places. There was this one family that I met. They invited me home for dinner. It was in Naples. I love Italian food. I said, oh God, real Italian food. So I go over there and I meet the family. It's older gentleman and his wife and the rest of the people that live there with them, you know. And we got to talking, and he starts asking me where I'm from. And I told him I was from Texas. He says, oh, and right away, I guess they're still thinking Texas is still cowboys and Indians, you know. And he asked me, he said, did I have any horses? Did I do this? And I said, no. I said, I don't. I said, there's people out there that still do that. I said, but no, we're a little bit more modern now. We don't have cowboys and Indians anymore out there like in the movies. But, you know, the people were kind of, I guess you could say they were surprised that I said that, because I guess that's what they were expecting, because that's all they ever saw, I guess, you know, watching the movies. I remember my first, when I first got on board, I think I'd been on there for about a week or so, and we were going through a really bad storm. It was over in the Mediterranean. Going through a really bad storm one night, and they were still flying, you know. They were doing a recovery, and one of the, we had vigilantes. They were like reconnaissance type aircraft, you know, at the time. And one of them was coming in, and I was laying in my bunk, you know, just rocking back and forth because the ship was rocking, you know, stuff like that. So I'm laying there, and then all of a sudden I hear a big old crash. And I said, uh-oh. To me, jokingly, I said, uh-oh, sounds like somebody missed. You know, I'm coming in. Then all of a sudden the crash alarm goes off. And it was that vigilante that hit the back end as it was coming down. Somebody had said something about how the ship doing this here had come up when they were getting ready to land, and so they were below the flight deck where they were supposed to come in, and they hit the back end of the ship and just big old fireball going down the flight deck. And then, I mean, there was other incidents like that too, but there was, considering the stuff that goes on up there, I think for my time up there, we didn't do near as bad as some of the other carriers. You know, I mean, we had our share of accidents, yes, you know, stuff like that. But I remember one funny one. Well, I think it's funny. May not have been funny to the pilot, but he was coming in, and for some reason, either he didn't think he had caught the wire, or his plane lost power, or something happened, and he ejected while he was landing. He ejected. Well, his plane just kept on going and eventually went into the water. Well, when he ejected, he goes up. When he comes down, by the time he's coming down, the ship's underneath him. So he lands on the forward end of the ship, bouncing off of planes. You know, I think maybe he might have broke a leg or something like that. Another guy got run over while they were moving aircraft around. He tripped over something, and the director, I guess, didn't see him because it was at night. Also, it was at night. It's hard at night, you know. And he tripped and he fell, and the plane ran over his legs, you know, crushed both of them. I don't know what happened to him after that. All I know is that they took him down to medical, and they were calling for blood donors. And I mean, that line was, the term I like to use, longer than steak and lobster line, because those lines, they're in Chow. When we had steak and lobster, that line went forever, you know. But this one for this guy here, it was a long line. I went down there, and when I got down there, I saw how long the line was, and one of the corpsman came out and says, "We don't need any more. You know, thank you for coming down, but we don't need. We got plenty." You know, they got him stabilized and everything. Then they sent him, I think, to Naples, because I think that's where we were at, off of Naples or something like that. So they sent him to the hospital over there. After that, I don't know what happened to him. But I felt for the guy. But, you know, we had things like that happen, you know, but it was, how would you call it? Things just happen, you know. Somebody asked me one time, when I worked up there, this after I got out, I told them, I said, yeah, I worked on a flight deck, I did this and everything like that. As a matter of fact, a couple of guys and I, at a meal we went to earlier, we were talking about this, and they said, people would ask me, didn't anything ever scare you working on a flight deck? I said, and I told them, I said, I've seen planes crash, I've seen guys get run over, I've seen this, I've seen that. I said, no, that did not scare me, because you had learned, you had taught yourself to always be looking, you know, be aware of your surroundings. They always used to tell us. I said, the only thing that ever scared me about working on a flight deck was getting blown over the side. And that happened a few times too, you know. They're moving aircraft, and the pilot's in there, he's getting ready to go up to catapult, or he just landed and he's moving out of the way, and he turns and somebody's standing there in the exhaust, and off the flight deck and down into the ocean you go, you know. And I told people, I said, that's the only thing that ever scared me about working on a flight deck. I said, because all the other things were like, yeah, they happen, but they don't happen as often as you think. So you don't worry too much about those. Like I said, you're always on the lookout, you know. But that right there, you could be walking across the flight deck thinking everything is okay, and you're going, you know, over the side. One thing though we did, because it was like more like the Cold War type thing, you know. The Russians were, you know, and us, but they had a helicopter hover over our flight deck one time. We were in Yugoslavia, in Split, Yugoslavia. I think it's Croatia now. And at the time we were over there, we pulled into the harbor there, and we're anchored out in the harbor. And across the harbor is the Russian Navy. You know, so we were there at the same time. And I do remember, because every time we pull into a port, we'd always have one of these, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can do, you know. And the big don't was, do not invite any, if you meet them out there while you're wandering around town, do not invite them over, referring to the Russian sailors, and do not accept any invitations to their ship. And I thought, ooh. But one day while we were there for about a week or so, and one day while we were out there, the Russian helicopter came from one of their ships and hovered over our flight deck, you know, and they just stayed there for a little while. Then it went back. But we were ready. Hope the boss doesn't see this, but they were saying, I'm going to give him the green light. That means he's authorized to land. And when he lands, y'all jump him. But they never landed. They just hovered there, and then they flew back to their ship. But I thought, what would we do with them? You know. But when I was in Yugoslavia, I met a gentleman there, and he wanted to take me around and show me the town. You know, I said, I don't know about that. Because, you know, the communists were there too. Well, the Russians, you know. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, thank you, but no thank you. I think I better stay around where I'm safe. In 1976, we had gone to in the Mediterranean. This was during the U.S. bicentennial year, you know. So we're over there, and I forgot what port we had just left. And then all of a sudden we get the message, you got to go to Lebanon. You know, because it was like right now, you know, like what's going on over in the Middle East right now. We had to go over there for that. And so they said, well, we're just going to hang around in case we have to evacuate American citizens. That's what they told us. So we're over there, and I think we were just circle around the eastern Mediterranean, off the coast of Lebanon, and on places like that, Israel, and, you know, all those countries right in there. And we were out there for like 42 days, 45 days, something like that, just cruising around. We missed about, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and we missed about 4 or 5 ports of call, you know, where we were going to places I had never been to. I said, oh yeah, I want to go there, because we knew where we were going, you know, and stuff like that. But when we got sent to Lebanon, that all went in the trash can, you know. And so that right there caused a little bit of not too happy crew, you know, because we missed all of that. But we made up for it when we finally left. I think, like I said, we were there for about 42 days, 45 days, somewhere around there. And then the America, another carrier, came over there to relieve us. And so I said, all right, see y'all. And we left, and we continued with the rest of our deployment. But we got to go to Monaco. We were there for the U.S. bicentennial. And on the 4th of July, we were anchored off the coast of Monaco, and Princess Grace, Prince Rainier, and the family, they came out to visit. And then that same time frame, they had a big parade, big party and everything like that. And a lot of the guys from the ship got invited to come over there, you know, and stuff like that. I got to see them, but I didn't get to go to the party, you know, because when they came on board, you know. And I thought, God, this is great, you know. Well, I got to go, and the first time I ever been to a casino, I went to the one in Monte Carlo, you know. And I thought, I walked in, and I said, holy cow, it's just like a James Bond movie. All the guys dressed up in tuxedos, the women in evening gowns and sitting playing cards and whatever it is that they were playing. I said, man, it's just like James Bond movie. Everybody all dressed up like that. And I stayed there for a little bit. I spent a little bit of money. I left with less than what I went in with, but it was the experience, you know. It's my first time I've been to something like that. And so we came back, and we had people come on board to visit, you know. Ringo Starr from the Beatles came out there. Dionne Warwick, she was a really nice lady, really nice lady. She came out there to visit us too. We had some other people came out that I didn't get to see them, but I had heard they were on board, you know. I did get to see Ringo, and I did get to see Dionne Warwick though. But like I said, she seemed like such a nice lady when the little bit of time that I got to spend around her. But that was one time that it was good. It was a good time for everybody. Egypt, I really did like that. We were in Alexandria, and they had tours. Like I said, they had set up tours and stuff. So one of the tours was to Cairo. So I got to go see the Sphinx, the Great Pyramids, and everything like that. And to me, Egypt was the Sphinx and 3 big pyramids. But that's not true, because there are pyramids all over the place. There's smaller ones, you know, not as big as the Great Pyramids, but they were everywhere. And I said, gosh, you know. But what got me was when I got to, because that was our tour, was to go there to see the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx. They're all in the same area. We get there and I turn around and look, and dang, this ain't like in the movies. Big old hotel right behind us, you know. And I thought, well, I guess tourist, you know. But I just crossed that off and just looked at, and we even got to take tours inside one of the smaller ones. And I thought, holy cow. And all the things that they did when they buried somebody in there, all the things that they quit them and everything like that. And it just amazed me what people did back then. But Venice was really nice. Naples, Naples in Italy. We went to Palermo. Oh gosh, Palermo. There was a bad incident at that one. When I transferred from the engine rooms up to the flight deck, you know, whenever we pulled in somewheres, we had to stand duty, you know, watch the ship and stuff like that. Well, me, being where I came from, I wasn't qualified to stand any of the watches of the air department. So I did a lot of show patrol duty, okay? And so one time, when we were in Palermo, we would travel in pairs, you know. And my partner and I were walking down one of the streets in Palermo. All of a sudden, this car comes speeding up, tire squealing, slamming on the brakes, and these 2 guys jump up. This guy was coming down the stairs of a building. They took him out. And I said, holy cow. And me, you know, first thing, duck behind something, you know, because I got no way to defend myself, you know. And so I duck, and then they get in and they take off. And then you could hear all the bystanders, you know, coming by, and then they just start hollering, mafioso, 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 you know. And then so I go back after my shift is up, and I was telling some people about it, you know. And then the next morning, one of the officers that I worked for, he was saying that he had seen it in the newspaper that supposedly the guy that got hit was one of these expose type reporters doing a story trying to expose the mafia, underworld, stuff like that. And supposedly he was getting too close to something, so they took care of business, you know. You're getting too close. But yeah, stuff like that happened. But, you know, oh, speaking of that, when we were in Palermo, the first night I was there and I was doing show patrol duty, we worked with the local law enforcement, you know. And so we go to their police station, and they're telling us, okay, we need y'all over here, need you, you know, where the sailors hang out. Right. Basically, that's where we patrolled, you know. So we're standing there, we're waiting. Now we're waiting for the bus to take us to our areas. And so I'm sitting there and waiting. And I tell my team leader, I said, I'm going to go outside and get some fresh air, walk around. I said, I'll be out there when the bus gets. Okay, go ahead. So I go out there and I'm walking around, and this police car comes driving up. One of the local police officers jumps out of the car. And I looked at him, and I swear this guy was ready for war. You know, he had like a machine gun with the old bandolero type crossovers with the bullets and everything, tear gas. I guess it was tear gas. I don't know, it might have been grenades or something, hanging on his belt and everything like that. And he's standing there, and he's like this with his machine gun, standing there looking at me, and I just looked at him, and all they gave us was a nightstick, you know. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking at my nightstick, and I'm looking at him, and I guess he caught on, you know, and he started laughing, so he unflaps his holster, pulls out his pistol, and goes to hand it to me, you know. And I told him, I said, no, sir, I cannot take it, I cannot take it. Because I'm thinking, God, if the police dress like this, we have no protection. You know, I mean, how many bullets can I fight off with a nightstick, you know, before my nightstick is gone. But yeah, that was a funny story like that. But I really did. I liked doing the show patrol because a lot of times I'd get it the first night, okay? So I would go, and I said, okay, now, like I said, they put us in the areas where all the sailors hung out. So I go there and said, okay, I do it. And my partner and I, we'd be walking around the streets. You could hear the music playing, you know, the hollering and everything like that, all the going on, you know. So I go there, well, let's go check this bar over here. Okay, this looks like a good place to hang out. I said, okay, that's on my list. You know, make a mental note of it. Go wandering around like, oh, no, this ain't no good. No, forget that one. And that's what I liked about doing it, because not that I was a bar hopper all the time, but at least if I felt like I wanted to go have a beer or something like that and enjoy company or something, you know, guys hanging out together, I knew where to go. But like I said, some places were locals only, so there was nothing going on there. Yeah, I didn't want to go to those places, but the nightclubs were really, that's where the sailors hung out. But oh my goodness, we cruised around in the Caribbean a few times, up and down the east coast of the United States, Atlantic and everything. Another good time we had, we went to the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands, and we had been working our butts off for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We've been working and working and working, and then finally we got through with whatever we were doing, training and everything like that. And so we pull into St. Thomas, and the chief engineer at the time, he decided to reward his people. So the whole weekend we were there, it was from the time you got off until the time you came back, it was nothing but party. Party, 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 party. You know, we had, they had reserved hotel rooms, you know, for us if you wanted to stay there. They had all kinds of stuff, you know, partying on the patio. If you wanted to go scuba diving, if you wanted to go snorkeling, whatever you wanted to do, Special Services was paying for it, you know. And I thought, man, this is great. That was one of the good times, you know. I mean, there was a lot of them, but those are some of the better ones that I remember. When I was in the service, okay, a lot of times I get a chance to come home, visit my family. Well, one thing I used to do was I'd go back to my high school where I graduated from, go visit some of my old high school teachers, coaches, and stuff like that. And one time I went back in, and I went to go visit with my chemistry teacher, and she let me come into the class. I just sat in the back, you know, and everything like that. And towards the end of the class, you know, the kids would ask me, hey, can I ask him some questions and stuff like that? She would ask me, do you want to answer questions? Sure, why not? You know, why not? And so they would get up, and I said, well, what do you want to know? And so they would ask me, what's it like, or this and everything like that. you know, would you do it again, or would you, you know, did you have any other career options and stuff like that, you know? And then one young guy told me that he was thinking about going into the military, you know, and he asked me, he said, which one would you recommend? And I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you this. I said, if you like to fight, join the Army. I said, if you like to fight and you have a John Wayne complex about you, I said, join the Marines. You know, I said, if you want to join and get you a good education, learn a good trade, stuff like that, I said, the Air Force is a great place to get education, especially into the electronics fields and stuff like that. And they said, okay. And I said, but if you want to go learn a trade, see the world, have a good time, go have a beer or two with your friends, I said, join the Navy. I said, it's a lot more fun. You know, and he said, oh, I'll think about that, you know. Whether he did or not, I don't know, but, you know, they like that. I can honestly say I was glad when I left, but then I think about it, I wish I had stayed, you know, because you meet a lot of guys, you make friends with a lot of guys you never ever would have met, because these other guys come from all different parts of the country, you know, and me right there in Houston, that's all I ever saw was Houston, maybe San Antonio, because I had family there, but that's all you ever saw, so you never got to see anybody else. But when you got out into the military and you meet people from all over the country, some come from other parts of the world, you know, and you start working with them, you know, rubbing shoulders with them, and they got your back, you got their back, you know, and stuff like that, and you start to make some friendships, you know, and a lot of them last even longer. Well, for me, there's 3 or 4 guys that I have been in contact with since then, and I still keep in contact with them, more than some of the guys I went to high school with, you know, and but I just glad I did it. I'm glad I did it, you know. Once I left the Navy, I was an electrician, because that's what I learned, you know. And I would have to say, if it hadn't been for that, I don't know what I would have been doing. I really don't. It was the training that I got, the schooling that I got, and the experience working at that trade and everything like that. It helped me when I came out and started working in the real world, you know. Like I said, I was an electrician, and when I came home, I was looking for a job, you know. And so it was my mom that came up with the idea, and she says, why don't you go apply at the light company? That's the local power company in Houston, right? And so I said, well, to me, the light company, as I saw it, were guys driving around in trucks, climbing up on poles, and working on the wires and everything. That's what I saw, because that's the only part I ever saw of them, you know. So I said, okay, I can, you know, it's kind of like being an electrician, you know. But and so I go down there and I apply, and they send me to different people to interview. The last interview I went to, the guy before that, he was in charge of the electrical maintenance for energy production, which is working at all the power plants that make the electricity. He says, I'm going to send you over to see this guy, and if he likes you, we'll take you. So I go over there and I interviewed with the electrical supervisor out there, and he looks at my resume and he says, you were in the Navy? I said, yes, sir. He said, you were an electrician in the Navy? I said, yes, sir. And he said, what kind of work did you do? So I told him. He said, okay, you can start Monday. Turns out he was an ex-Navy electrician, you know. So if you came with a resume that said you were an electrician in the Navy, he hired you right away, you know. And so I hired on, and I was out there for 25 and a half years, working for the company. And then, in their wisdom, they offered me early retirement, you know. And I thought, well, you know what, I've been doing this 6 years in the Navy, 25 years here, 31 years I've been doing as an electrician and everything like that. I thought maybe it's time to try something different. So I went ahead, I accepted the retirement. But after about a year of being retired, I didn't have nothing to do. All my buddies that I ran around with were still working, you know. So I thought, well, let me go back, see if I can find me another job. So because of my electrical background and everything, that's where I went looking. And I hired on with the city of Houston as an electrician out at the airport. And they took me out there and showed me around. I said, dang, this just like working on a flight deck, you know, except bigger, you know. And so I stayed there, and I ended up retiring from there also here just recently. I just recently retired. So I had like 25, 31, 16 more. I had 40 some odd years working as an electrician like that, you know. And I thought, well, now for real, it's time to kick back and relax, you know.